Hey, what's up y'all? This is William, the Permaculture Consultant, and today is another Permaculture Q&A. And if you're unfamiliar with that, it's where you guys submit questions down in the comment section with the hashtag Permaculture Q&A at the beginning of your comment or your question, and then I answer it live on video, or not live on video, but on video. So if you have any questions that you would like to submit, that you would like answered on video, then leave them down below in the comment section. Before we do get started, I have an exciting announcement. I've announced that I was gonna do this earlier this year. It was quite a few months ago. If you're new, you probably didn't catch it, but I'm going to be doing an online PDC. And if you're unfamiliar, a PDC is a permaculture design course. I'm going to be hosting it through Patreon. Now, I know a lot of people don't want to support Patreon or anything like that, but frankly, it's the best option that I have available to hosting some sort of membership class. Now on there, on the Patreon, it's not ready yet, but when it is ready, I'll be sure to announce it to everybody. You will have a few different tier options. One will be just the PDC. Another one will be like a PDC plus you can bounce questions off of me and stuff like that. And another option will be a PDC plus the questions, and then also like a monthly consultation call. We'll figure out the details for sure by the time it uploads and everything, but I know some people were excited about that, and I'm excited to announce it, so look forward to that in the future. I also want to say that this Q&A is going to be a little bit different because I have a lot to get done today, so I'm going to be answering questions while I'm getting some work done. So let's get into it. First question is from Anna Kozlowski. What do you think of crop rotation for your veg garden? Does permaculture apply? Can't wait to see your soil test set up, and a hard worker so encouraging to watch. Praying for your sweet family and baby June's teething. Thank you so much. So you're basically asking if crop rotation works in a permaculture system or if it's needed or anything like that. And originally or traditionally I would have said yes, it's important to do crop rotation and stuff. And even the Gardenate app that I recommend to everybody for gardening says to do, crop rotation, and actually shows you which ones to rotate after whatever you just planted or whatever you just harvested. Knowing what we know now about the soil food web, I wouldn't worry about crop rotation because there really is no limit to the amount of nutrients that are in the soil. Like, the nutrients run out when you run out of inorganic material. So your rocks, your clays, your silts, your sands, stuff like that. That's whenever you run out of nutrients, because your soil biology is going down there. Your fungi, your protozoa, your microarthropods, your nematodes, your fungi, bacteria, I think I said fungi twice. All of those guys are breaking down the inorganic material, especially the bacteria and the fungi, and they're deriving whatever nutrients the plants need. That's what they get in exchange for those sugars from the plants, is a recipe, basically a grocery list. So as long as you don't run out of inorganic material, then you should never run out of nutrients. So the thought behind the crop rotation before in the past was like, hey, you want to plant such and such after your sweet potatoes, for example, because the sweet potatoes just took a whole bunch of, let's say, phosphorus from your soil, and you need to replace that phosphorus with something else. Knowing what we know now about the soil food web, we know that what we really need to do is just facilitate the microbes. If your main goal is to take care of the microbes, then I don't think crop rotation is going to be that important. Now, I will be rotating to a different crop in these two beds just because it's too late in the summer to be doing sweet potatoes, but I was thinking after harvesting these guys, I wonder if next year I could actually get 2 sweet potato harvests in 1 year out of these 2 beds. If I started earlier in the year, weather permitting and stuff, if I started earlier in the year and then did like maybe spring sweet potatoes and then fall sweet potatoes. It's going to be a little bit difficult because I can't really get started earlier than like Easter around here, because that's whenever our last typical frost date is around here. But I think I could bleed it over into the fall and extend maybe slightly into winter, as long as I protect the vines from frost. Is crop rotation necessary, or is it used within permaculture? Yes, it's used within permaculture and recommended by a lot of consultants and designers. But like I was saying before, if you're focused on the soil food web, then it's not necessary to my understanding. Now, I will be testing this further, but as for right now, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Hopefully that answers your question. This next one is from Rose Gerber 2024. Hi William, I am thinking of switching my focus away from very large annual veggie garden and taking next season to grow more compost and meat. However, I do not want to permanently abandon that garden plot. Any suggestions on perennials or cover crops to plant there to hopefully protect the area until I am ready to reinvest? Hashtag permaculture Q&A. So this is going to kind of depend on where you live and where you're growing and stuff like that. Oh look, found some more sweet potatoes. Dang, that's cool. But yeah, it's gonna kind of depend on where you're living and where you're growing and stuff like that. If you are, I'll give you an example of where we live right here in East Texas, zone 8A. If I were to abandon this garden more than I already have, I would put down, if we're going into fall, then I would put down a clover cover crop. If you're doing it over the summer, then buckwheat and cowpea would be a good one, but be careful because that cowpea is going to put down, I mean, it's going to just produce a lot of biomass by the end of the season. So keep that in mind. Cowpea also can reseed itself, so that's valuable. If you're going through the summer, you don't necessarily have to worry about reseeding it because it can do so in about 2 weeks, given enough water and stuff. So that's what I would go with. A more perennial cover crop that you could go with is like strawberries. You could just plant a whole bunch of strawberries all through your raised beds, let those take over, plant pretty densely, especially if you plan on reclaiming that garden plot later for more annual production and stuff, because the dense strawberries are going to help outcompete and keep away anything else that might try to grow around there. But whatever your cover crop is, to make the following year easier on reclaiming that garden plot, I would make sure you seed or you sow very, very thick. I wouldn't want any empty spots or any voids to take over, because then that's just going to invite the annoying species to come out and take over your garden. Before seeding though, I would also maybe broad fork if at all possible. This is going to allow the seeds to get past that compaction layer and be as beneficial as possible to your garden before you plant that following year. Also, you might find out that, hey, I just like raising meat. It takes a lot less effort, get a lot more calories for your buck, and all that stuff. So your vegetable garden could easily turn into an animal fodder garden or something that you use to feed your livestock. Hopefully that is helpful. Got one from James Christ. I have used diatomaceous earth around my swimming pool and deck for years to keep down the bugs and snakes. I literally live on top of a mountain and we have timber rattlesnakes come out of the surrounding woods to soak up the sun on our stone patio. The pool and my garden area are separated by a garage and a tiny greenhouse. I've been slowly relearning how to build a permaculture food environment, replacing my standard annual monoculture garden. Diatomaceous earth is recommended all over the place for pests in the garden, but I'm wondering if it is correct. Won't it also eliminate the good predators? I really want to keep the snakes away, but I don't want to harm the environment I am trying to build. What are your thoughts? I don't necessarily see any issue with the diatomaceous earth. I guess it depends on your location of placing the diatomaceous earth. If you're putting it directly into your garden beds or directly on top of the places where you're growing food, then yeah, it could probably kill the good guys as well. But if you're using it just as like a border protectant, like you're just putting it around the perimeter of stuff, then I would say it's good to go. Especially if you're keeping back like timber rattler snakes and stuff like that. Remember, one of the ethics, dang, I missed a lot of sweet potatoes in this bed. One of the ethics of permaculture is people care. So if people care means you got to keep the snakes away for you to be outside, then by all means, use the diatomaceous earth. Especially considering that that's one of the least toxic options you could be using to keep away pests, is the diatomaceous earth. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But it does lead me into another aspect of permaculture. And this isn't necessarily a question that was asked, but this is something that I see pretty common. And that's the overanalyzation of your impact on your surrounding environment. Now, it is good to be, at least raise the question, hey, how does me doing such and such affect the area surrounding me? And that's a good question to ask. It can go a little too far sometimes, I should say. Meaning like you never end up doing anything because you're very aware of your impact on the surrounding environment, which is fine. Like the fact that I would say the fact that you are growing your own food or making the attempt to grow your own food is going to outweigh the negative effects of maybe the diatomaceous earth in your area. And now this is a very common thing for especially new people to permaculture to do, is to overanalyze this. So, and I'm not even necessarily talking about you. I'm talking about just other scenarios I've witnessed, other questions I've seen before and stuff like that, is that the beginner permaculture designer or the permaculture practitioner and stuff usually overthinks their effect on the surrounding environment, and in return does very little or nothing because of that effect. I am not directing this at you at all. Just please know that this is not directed at you. It just sparked a thought that I had earlier about the overanalyzation. So hopefully that helps. I would continue on with the diatomaceous earth, especially if it's working against snakes. Like if it's working at keeping the snakes away, then for sure get some diatomaceous earth. If you want some food that can keep the snakes away, then I would check out maybe keeping some pigs. You could keep like a rotating standing army of pigs on your property, and that does a really good job of knocking out the snake population. In fact, the buildings you can see behind me while I was broad forking, the pigs are working around those guys right now for the sole reason that I want them to wipe out any potential snakes that are around there or in the buildings or anything like that, because I don't like snakes, and I think you can understand why. A little side note is that broad forking is a little bit harder if you're answering questions at the same time. This is from Christopher Taylor. How do you get rid of cutter ants? We live on 2 acres and have 5 pear trees that are around 80 years old, and the cutter ants are cutting a lot of the leaves off, and cutter ants have stripped all of my rose bushes. The ants are spreading out all over the 2 acres. I'm sure that they have a den or nest or whatever you call it underneath the concrete slab of our house. Thank you for any help that you have. So for your cutter ant situation, typically I would say, you need to change the soil biology, which I did in the garden, and a lot of the ants are gone. But considering that they might be living underneath that concrete slab, I don't know that that's really gonna be a solve for their problem. What you could do, okay, so there's a long, complicated answer that you could do, and that's going to take quite a bit of time, and and it might work. I don't even know for sure if it would work. And it's basically make high quality compost, make a compost tea out of it, and then spray your trees and your rose bushes with that compost tea. And what that's going to do is it's not going to allow the ants to have access to your leaves, because if you look at the leaves underneath the microscope, they're completely covered in fungi and bacteria, like a glued armor almost on the surface of your leaves. The ants just simply won't have access to your leaf without dealing with the whole standing army of microbes. I'm not even sure that'll work, and that's going to take a lot of effort, and it's going to take a lot of trial and error, especially when it comes to making your compost tea. So one thing that I would do instead is try like the orange oil, using orange oil to like spray where you think the nests are, but also if you see any of them, spray them directly with the orange oil, and then maybe spray the ground around your trees with orange oil as well. If you can find the den or can find the nest, then I would use boiling water and orange oil. It's one of the common solutions that I get in the comment section all the time. It's not just one person telling me to use orange oil. Even TD from the Texas boys, he says use orange oil, and that works out a lot. Works out very well. So I would give that an attempt. Try the orange oil, try to find the den if at all possible, and wipe them out that way. You could also just get an anteater. I don't know where you live, but I think an anteater would be pretty cool, and I've actually thought about getting an anteater myself. I don't know what, I mean, this is Texas. I could almost have a zoo if I wanted to. So I'm sure I could get an anteater. And if you do get an anteater, I'm sure you could, ooh, I stepped in an ant pile. Speaking of ants, if you do get an anteater, I'm sure you could sell the services out, or you could hire the services out to your surrounding neighbors. So might be a little business opportunity for you if you're interested. This one is from Vision Words. I live in mid-Missouri, Zone 6, and I've been attempting to build soil in native rocky clay with cardboard, wood chips, and homemade compost. The thing is, my wood chip mulch and compost are overrun with woodlice, aka roly-poly bugs. I have a compost pile that is finished or as close as it can get and has been resting for a few weeks, and when I scooped some up to spread out today, it was moving with all sizes of woodlice. My compost was also very loose, almost sandy. Maybe you know what may have caused that as well. But my main question is this: what is my abundance of woodlice indicating? From what I can tell, they aren't really harmful, but they are telling me that the soil is lacking or that it's too much of something. My goal is primarily a healthy food forest with some annuals mixed in, so I'm encouraging a slightly higher fungal content. I'm a big fan of your videos, and thank you for the help. Alrighty, so roly-polies are actually a beneficial insect in your garden. And I wouldn't worry too much about them being in place, because what it could be is that they are one of the main predators that you have in your environment, and they are taken care of in like an overabundance of a particular food source that they like. It could be bacteria, could be fungi, it could be another microarthropod, it could be a macroarthropod, I'm not entirely sure. But they're a beneficial thing, so I wouldn't worry about them being in your compost so much. And it will balance out over time. So once the food source starts going away for the roly-polies, then they will start like diminishing in numbers. It's like a constant battle whenever it comes to your compost. The prey versus predators, basically. Your basic bacteria and your small fungi and all that stuff is your prey element. Your predator element are the nematodes, the arthropods, the micro and macro arthropods, the protozoa. All those guys are your predators. Now, your plants don't benefit until your predators eat the prey and poop out the prey. That's whenever your plants get fertilized and benefit from the whole soil food web. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, and it's probably an awesome thing to add into your food forest or your garden or whatever. And also, the roly-polies might be turning it from a bacterial dominant compost more into a fungi dominant compost, eliminating some of the bacteria element. So they could just be part of the transition. They could just be eating like an overabundance of the bacteria, all kinds of things. But roly-polies are good. I wouldn't worry about them. But awesome question. There was a part 2 to your question as well. Oh, as far as my compost is also very loose, almost sandy. Maybe you know what could have caused that as well. I would say that you're getting too much soil in your compost. If your compost is sandy, you shouldn't have actual soil or like the inorganic material, the surrounding areas, the sand, silts, clays. You shouldn't have that as an ingredient in your compost. You should try to keep it all organic material of various sizes, dimensions, sources, all that type of stuff. So that's what I would try to do in the future. Try to eliminate the amount, or try to mitigate how much soil or dirt from the surrounding area you're getting into your compost, and that should make it a little bit easier. Alrighty, that's going to be it for us today. Getting to the point where the camera is starting to overheat, so if you guys have any permaculture Q&A questions that you would like answered, then leave them down below in the comment section with the hashtag permaculture Q&A at the beginning of it. Can't wait to see you guys at the Homesteaders United Jamboree at the end of this month. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, we'll see you.